Real estate agents, if you're working on conversion, last week we talked about my top 5 ways to improve conversion. This week, I'm giving you the second 5 for a total of my top 10 ways to improve your conversion. Number 6, you got to know your objection handlers forward and backward. Now, this is really critical because you don't always know when you're going to get the objection. And when you get the objection, you may not be able to have a sales script written on paper sitting right in front of you to be able to read off of. So this is one of those, another example of like you really need to be practicing what you're doing. Practice with a script partner. And this isn't just as simple as, hey, practice your run-of-the-mill buyer script or listing presentation or something, but actually have them be an active participant. Have them give you objections that you have to handle on the spot, right then and there. I had this happen again the other day where phone rang. It was in the middle of the day. I didn't recognize the number. I took the call and he pitched me an objection right there on the spot. And I was able to immediately roll into the appropriate objection handler, in part because I've done this 1,000 times and I was able to deliver it effectively such that I landed the appointment. And that's what this is about, is simply being able to get them to the next step of the sales process, whatever that might look like. If you're talking with them on the phone, it's hopefully to meet them in person. If you're meeting with them in person, it's hopefully to get them to agree to work with you moving forward. But whatever it is, you're trying to get them to the next step. And you can't do that unless you know forward and backward what your sales objections are, likely objections they may have, and what the handlers are for those. Number 7. The fortune is in the follow-up. If you're not following up with your sales leads or with your sphere or with your past clients, somebody else is. Oftentimes it takes on average 6 contacts or more to ultimately close the business or get them to agree to work with you. And so if you're not having repeated contacts over and over, this is one of the most common mistakes. And even in some of the biggest teams in America, I know of one in particular, it is the number 1 team in this global brand. They said that they actually don't continue the follow-up with their sales leads, that they basically make one phone call, and if they don't land the appointment on that, then they move on to the next. And just simply their volume of leads, right, is at a point that it has allowed them to be very, very, very successful. But the amount of business that they're leaving on the table by not following up is mind-blowing, knowing the amount of business that they're actually doing, apparently calling just one time. And so it is really important, guys. Continue the follow-up. Have a system. Have a CRM. Use Google Calendar if you have to. Use some way that after you talk with somebody that you have a reminder set in the future for yourself to follow back up with them and then do it again. You're going to keep doing that until either, the old saying is, until they buy or they die, right? I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but you get the idea that you're continuing to follow up because the fortune is in the follow-up. Number 8. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Under pressure, you will not rise to the level of your expectations, but rather you will fall to the level of your training. So this is really important that you guys are actually training, actually practicing your sales scripts and skills, because under pressure, when it matters, when you're on the phone with that hot prospect, you will not rise to the level of your expectations, but rather you will fall to the level of your training. And if you've not done training, there's a good chance you're not going to land that prospect. So make sure, guys, you're practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. You're no different, no better, certainly, than most elite athletes in their profession. So you guys should be practicing at least as much as they do. Number 9, I disarm the potential client that I'm talking to by stating the obvious. We might not be the best fit for one another. This is immediately disarming because, number 1, it is actually true, right? We may not actually be the best fit. The other reason I like to talk about this is because it is just true, right, that we may not be the best fit, but it also throws them off kilter a little bit. This is what we call a pattern interrupt. This is not one of the things that they expect the salesperson to talk about. They expect them to always just be like chasing them as a client and being a pushy salesperson. But when you tell them, look, we may not be a good fit. We might be an excellent fit, but the truth is I don't know if you're going to be a good client for me, and you don't know if I'm going to be a good agent for you. Why don't we just link up and find out for sure one way or the other, right? This makes you come across as fairly authentic, and it makes you come across as successful enough that you don't need their business. Again, of course you want it. You want their business. You don't want to come across as so ungrateful or something that you wouldn't want their business. But the truth is that the folks that don't need it, those are the most successful agents in the business, and they're able to give really good advice because they're not so hungry for a commission that they're just pushing you into a sale, right? They're able to give you legitimate advice and tell you, hey, it might be time to walk away from this deal or whatever the case may be, but you're going to be able to give more sound advice, more trustworthy advice if you don't need that sale from that client, or truth be told, you don't need to work with that client at all because you've got 45 others that you're working with. Lastly, number 10, don't be afraid to close. It's precisely the process of closing that uncovers more objections that maybe you didn't realize existed. And so when you close, if they're ready to do business with you, they'll tell you as much. Yep, hey, that's awesome, let's meet. Hey, yep, that's awesome, where's the paperwork to sign? But if they're not ready, if there's an underlying objection that you hadn't uncovered yet, they're going to say, well, yeah, there's this thing. And so that's the objection. You handle that objection, right? However that may be. Again, there's a finite number of objections. So when they give you the objection that you've heard 1,000 times, you handle that objection. And then what do? You go for the close again. You try to close. If they're ready to do business with you, they will tell you, okay, great, let's sign the paperwork and move forward, or let's meet. If they're not, they're going to say, yeah, but there's this other thing. Awesome, another objection. I actually love it because I know that what the objection means is I'd like to do business with you if not for this one thing. And so let me address that one thing so that we can get closer to just simply, let's do business. So guys, go for the close. Don't be afraid to go for the close again and again and again and again if you have to, so that each time it's going to uncover more objections that you hadn't gotten to in your conversation yet and allow you to ultimately do more business with more clients.